Before she stepped into the house, Marina had never heard of Halewick Bay. Now, it won't let her leave. A forgotten inheritance, a love across lifetimes, and a haunting mystery stitched into the walls. This is not just a ghost story. It's a choice. Welcome to our channel. And today, join Marina in her adventure to find out what she finds in her newfound house and what memories return. The wind that ushered Marina Vale into Halewick Bay carried salt, fog, and something unspoken. The coastal town, sunken between jagged cliffs and the hush of centuries, bore the look of a place that remembered too much and said too little. Her boots clicked against the old cobbled road, the rhythmic sound a poor companion to the rustling hush of seafoam crashing far below. The cab driver didn't wait for a tip, just muttered a quick good luck and sped off down the sloping lane, leaving Marina and her single suitcase before the gate of a house that had no business existing. No listing, no photograph, no family mention. And yet, the letter left with the lawyer had said, without ambiguity, Marina Vale inherits the property at 12 Wren Hollow, Halewick Bay. She had assumed it would be a storage shed or some clerical mistake, but the house before her stretched 3 stories tall, its roofline broken with towers and dormers, its face crowded with ivy and rot-stained brick. There was a small plaque beside the door, tarnished to the point of illegibility. The key in her pocket was heavier than expected. Inside, the air tasted of lavender and soot. Her footsteps echoed across wood that groaned like it remembered every previous footstep laid upon it. Sunlight filtered through leaded windows dusted in grime, casting fractured patterns on faded rugs and long-forgotten furniture. Portraits lined the walls, none of faces she recognized, though one, a boy with sunken eyes and auburn curls, seemed disturbingly familiar. The hallway extended longer than logic allowed, doors spaced too evenly, as though someone had added more rooms than the structure should hold. When she turned back toward the foyer, it looked different, like the shadows had rearranged themselves while her back was turned. She explored cautiously, fingers trailing against the wallpaper, which peeled in places to reveal older paper beneath, floral, then geometric, then dark crimson, like dried blood. The kitchen looked barely touched. The pantry was stocked with expired tins and a solitary wine bottle labeled in a language she didn't know. She didn't remember opening it, but an hour later, the cork sat on the table and the bottle was half empty. Upstairs, the rooms grew stranger. One was filled entirely with antique dolls, seated in rows like silent pupils. Another had a ceiling painted with a night sky that shimmered faintly, even without light. In the study, she found a journal. Its pages were crisp, unwritten, except for the first, which read, "Welcome home, Marina. We've missed you." She dropped it, heart hammering, but when she picked it up again, the page was blank. In the mirror behind her, she thought she saw another face, one she didn't recognize, standing just behind her left shoulder.
She turned.
No one. The mirror had cracked, though. A spiderweb of lines radiated out from the place her reflection's eye had been. That night, she tried to leave. The door wouldn't open. Not locked, just inert, as if the wood refused to move. The windows wouldn't break. The cab company didn't answer. Her phone showed no signal, and the battery drained within minutes, even though it had been fully charged. She curled up in a dusty armchair and listened to the wind speak in tones almost like language. In the fireplace, ashes shifted though no fire had been lit. At 3:33 a.m., she woke to piano music. There was no piano. The music came from above, yet the attic door refused to open, despite having no lock. She pressed her ear to the wood. Someone was humming. The next morning, the hallway was different again. Shorter.
The boy in the portrait was smiling now.
She whispered aloud, "What is this place?" The house whispered back. The attic had been locked, until the morning Marina awoke to find the door wide open, a draft of cool, lavender-scented air drifting down the stairs. The piano music had stopped sometime during the night, leaving behind a silence so dense it felt like pressure against her chest. Cautiously, she ascended, every step creaking beneath her weight, her breath fogging in the still cold air despite the summer warmth outside. The attic stretched farther than the house should allow, a slanted room with beams blackened by age, and a single dormer window veiled in gauze-thin curtains. In the center, a weathered trunk waited. The lock clicked open too easily. Inside were bundles of letters, tied in faded blue ribbon, each one addressed to a man named Elias. The handwriting, sharp and elegant, matched her aunt's, though Marina had never seen this kind of penmanship before. The dates spanned decades she couldn't account for: 1911, 1943, 1972, and others well into the future: 2035, 2049, even 2091. Her fingers trembled as she opened the first envelope. The letter read like a love confession, one that anticipated Marina's arrival. "If you're reading this, it means I failed again. She's back, but it's not over." The letters chronicled a strange cycle, always involving a woman who looked like Marina, always ending with betrayal and a vanishing. Some mentioned the Loop. Others referenced places in Halewick Bay that no longer existed: a lighthouse torn down in 1950, a clockmaker's shop gone to fire in 1928, a cafe where time ran backwards. The attic's light grew dimmer as she read, though the sun was climbing outside. Marina felt a buzzing in her ears, and once, when she blinked, the whole attic shifted. The walls changed hue. The window looked out upon a sky filled with airships instead of gulls. Marina tried to show the letters to a local archivist, but when she reached town, the envelope was blank, its pages white. "Paper memory," the archivist said cryptically. "Some things don't survive removal." Strangers in Halewick began to speak to her with familiarity. An elderly woman at the grocer's greeted her as Elise. A boy by the pier waved and shouted, "Miss Vale, you're back." One man insisted she'd sold him a book decades ago, one she only now discovered in the house's library, its author, Elias Wren. The name clawed at something inside her. That night, she returned to the attic and read more letters. One was unsigned, scrawled hurriedly. "You'll remember him by the scar. He never forgets. He always finds you." The mirror in the attic corner was covered in a dark cloth. When she removed it, her reflection didn't mimic her movements. Instead, it reached forward, as if trying to warn her. She dropped the cloth and ran. The stairs behind her shifted. She found herself in the kitchen instead of the landing. Hours had passed. That evening, she followed a trail of ink drops across the second floor, black droplets staining the wooden floor, leading into a room that hadn't been there yesterday. Inside, a music box played softly, and on the bed was a photograph of her aunt and a man with a familiar, jagged scar over his right eye. The back read, in looping script, "Elias, 1943. Marina whispered, "How can he still be alive?" And from somewhere within the walls, a male voice answered, "Because you brought me back." The storm rolled in with such violence that even the seagulls vanished, leaving the sky an empty, thrashing sheet of gray. Marina lit candles along the staircase, the flickering light barely warding off the darkness pressing at the windows. Thunder shook the house's bones, and with each lightning flash, she thought she saw movement in the portrait frames, shadows flickering where none should be. The boy with auburn curls was gone from his painting. The frame sat empty. Marina closed the door to the study and barricaded it, but the piano music returned, slow, mournful, coming from nowhere and everywhere. At 12:12 a.m., the electricity died. The last candle flickered and went out. Marina stood frozen in the dark, heart pounding, until a voice said quietly, "You always forget me." She spun, clutching the stair rail. There, at the foot of the stairs, stood a man, tall, rain-slicked, with a jagged scar over his right eye. His eyes were the kind that looked ancient even in youth. He held no umbrella, yet wasn't wet. His voice was calm, like pages turning. "I'm Elias," he said. "You left me again." Marina backed away. "I don't know you." He tilted his head with sad familiarity. "Not yet. But you will. You always do." He pulled from his coat a torn photograph, one Marina had seen just hours ago on the attic bed, and handed it to her. It was aged, identical in every crease. But the back was different. Instead of a date, it now read, "This is our last chance." He told her a story, how they had met in dozens of lifetimes, always inside this house, always at the cusp of remembering. Sometimes she stayed.
Sometimes she ran.
But always, it ended with betrayal, hers or his. And each time, the house reset, like a broken watch that only ticked within its own forgotten loop. Marina didn't believe him.
Couldn't.
But when he said her mother's lullaby, one she'd never told a soul, the words cracked something deep inside her. She remembered a rooftop under stars, a promise sealed in blood, a fall, a scream, and the house waking. They sat by the cold hearth until dawn, not speaking. Elias never blinked. He spoke like someone both desperate and resigned, like a ghost trying to warn someone from walking the same cliff edge again. He told her of the hollowed thread, a ritual, a loop, a curse meant to preserve love across time, but corrupted by betrayal. "You once swore never to leave me," he said. "And then you did. Again and again." Marina asked why he returned. He smiled without joy. "Because the house won't let us end it, unless we remember everything." The next day, Elias was gone, but his coat remained, hung neatly on the foyer hook. Inside the pocket, she found a key labeled the tapestry room. The room didn't exist. Not yet. And in the mirror, the portrait boy had returned, older now, with a scar above his eye, smiling like he knew her secret before she did. The tapestry room wasn't on the blueprint Marina found tucked in the study desk, but the key she retrieved from Elias's coat matched a small door behind the old grandfather clock. That clock had never worked, its hands perpetually stuck at 5:41, but now it ticked loudly, as though something inside had finally started again. She opened the door, revealing a spiral staircase she hadn't seen before. The walls were lined with carvings of thread spools, needles, and faceless figures seated in a circle, each one holding a different object, a heart, a mirror, a knife, a book. The staircase descended longer than it should have, leading into a chamber glowing with amber light and dust motes suspended like stars. The walls were draped in tapestries, hundreds of them, some faded to near invisibility, others rich in color and story. Each one depicted scenes Marina couldn't believe existed. Her own childhood bedroom rendered in thread, the attic scene from yesterday, the study in flames, Elias standing at a shoreline lit with moons she didn't recognize. Some scenes hadn't happened yet. One showed her and Elias holding hands inside a burning house. Another showed her alone, weeping beside a broken loom. In the center was the loom itself, ancient, cobwebbed, with a shuttle that glowed faintly. Marina reached out, and the threads stirred like breathing skin. Then she heard it, a voice reciting incantations in a language not meant for sound. A flash of memory struck her. Her aunt, younger and robed, chanting with others around this very loom. Their faces were obscured by veils made of spider silk. She remembered the name now, the Hollowed Thread. A secret society who believed memory, when stitched correctly, could alter destiny. But their ritual required a sacrifice. One loved, one betrayed, one forgotten. The loop they created was never meant to trap, it was meant to preserve. A journal lay beside the loom. Marina flipped through it, and the entries were written in her own handwriting. "He'll return when the mirror breaks," one said. "But he never forgives." Another, "I choose him every time. And every time, he chooses the house." Elias appeared behind her, as if conjured by the words. He said nothing at first, only watched her. When he finally spoke, his voice cracked. "Do you remember now?" Marina nodded slowly. "Enough to know I never made it to the end." He knelt beside the loom, revealing a hidden panel in the floor. Beneath it, spools of hair, teeth, torn paper, all relics from past cycles. Each one marked with a name. Marina, Elise, Anais, Clara. Always her. Different faces, same soul. You have a choice, Elias said. Burn the loom. Or finish the weave. She asked what would happen. If you burn it, none of this happens again. But we never existed. Not even in memory. And if I finish it, we try again. And maybe this time, we break it clean. The candles flickered violently. Footsteps echoed above, though the house was empty. The tapestry behind her now showed a girl at the loom, her face hidden in shadow.
It moved.
The house creaked incessantly that night, as though restless. Marina awoke to find the floorboards beneath her bed warped in a pattern she hadn't noticed before, circular, concentric, pulsing faintly with warmth. She pried them up, one by one, exposing a set of stone stairs spiraling downward into a place the house should not have held. The descent was steep, the air growing colder with each step, until she emerged into a vast chamber lined with mirrors and candle niches. In the center stood a pedestal holding a mirror unlike the rest, black glass, oval, framed in bone. It shimmered as though filled with liquid. The mirror was not a reflection of her world. It showed Marina living other lives, one where she had children and never knew Halewick Bay, one where she died young, one where Elias was only a dream in her childhood diary. But all shared one thing, an ache that never resolved, a sense that something was unfinished. Her fingers brushed the surface, and it rippled, pulling her into a vision. In it, Elias stood beside her in a memory she didn't recognize. They argued by the loom. She struck him. He begged her not to finish the thread. She screamed that she'd rather be forgotten than betrayed again. The mirror released her, and Marina fell back onto the stone. On the wall behind her, etched into the stone like a confession, was a choice. To leave is to forget. To remain is to remember. But to love is to lose again. She turned, and Elias was there. I remember everything, she said. He nodded. So do I. He looked tired, older, like the centuries had caught up in a single moment. You made me promise not to try again, he whispered. But I did. I always do. She asked what he would choose. To forget, he said. But I never can. She looked into the black glass mirror. Her reflection blinked out, replaced by another version of her, a version who smiled freely, who looked at Elias like no betrayal had ever passed between them. The pedestal held a blade beside the mirror. The inscription read, "Cut the thread or complete the weave." Marina lifted it. Her hands shook. A small slit in the floor revealed an ancient loom, thread taut, shuttle frozen mid-motion. The blade fit perfectly into the groove. Do I lose you either way? She asked. Elias hesitated. Not if you remember who we are outside this place. But what if there is no outside? The candles dimmed. The mirror's glass began to crack. She closed her eyes and made her choice. When she opened them, the floor was whole again. The mirror was gone. And Elias was nowhere to be found. Only the wind remained, whispering, "Remember me." Marina awoke on the foyer floor, the morning light pouring in through the windows as though the storm had never existed. Dust hung in stillness. The house was quiet, too quiet, like a stage waiting for the play to resume. Her memories were jumbled but whole, like a deck of cards reassembled just out of order. The portraits were back in place, their subjects smiling with faint cruelty. She walked from room to room and realized the house was smaller now, tighter, more complete. The attic door no longer existed. The study had become a sunroom. The mirror room was gone. But she remembered. She remembered it all. Elias was nowhere to be found. Not in the library, not by the sea. She returned to the loom chamber, except it no longer existed. In its place was a crawl space with children's toys and a handwritten sign, for Marina, in case she forgets again. Inside was a journal, written in her hand, with only one entry. I made the right choice. But I don't know what it was. Marina wandered the village. The townspeople looked at her like a stranger again. The boy who once called her Miss Vale no longer recognized her. The archivist smiled politely, asked her name. The grocer handed her exact change. No extra note tucked into her hand this time. It was as if the loop had ended, but with it, any trace of what had truly happened. Yet she still felt Elias in the air, like the memory of music long after the instrument had been put away. Back at the house, she lit a fire for the first time. The chimney didn't smoke. It burned clean. She took the final candle from the mantel, the one with the wax seal shaped like a broken heart, and watched it melt slowly. The shadows it cast danced in the rhythm of the music she used to hear. On the third day, a letter arrived in the post. No return address. It was dated 20 years in the future. The ink shimmered as if still wet. It read, "Marina, if you're reading this, you made it out. I didn't. That was always the way. But this time, you get to keep the life we never had.
Don't look for me.
Just remember the garden. That's where we were happiest. Yours always."
E.
She returned to the garden behind the house, now overgrown and tangled with violets and bramble. At its center was the sundial, untouched. On its base, new etchings had appeared. 2 names, Elias Wren and Marina Vale. The date was unreadable. She knelt beside it and felt the ground hum faintly. As the sun dipped below the cliffside, Marina whispered, "Goodbye." A breeze moved the ivy beside the house. The boy in the portrait smiled one last time. And the house, for the first time in memory, exhaled.
Free.
Thank you for sticking around for the breathtaking conclusion. If this story lingered with you like a dream you can't shake, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who loves a haunting mystery. What would you choose? Love, memory, or freedom? Comment below and let us know what you think really happened at the house with no yesterday.